At the passages in the last discourse, as it's normally called. That's John 14, 15, 16, and 17. Jesus' last discourse. And I have been wrestling over the years with how to, if I did preach on this or teach on this, how to do it. It is so repetitious that you can't take it just one chapter at a time. You got to take themes through it. But before I do, and this is going to be not every Wednesday, but most Wednesdays, talk about two things: praying for lost people. The second thing is, did you ask anybody what their favorite Bible story was? Now, I had an interesting experience 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. I go to rehab, and you got to do some things intentionally when you're going to try to meet people. I get down there a little bit early, a few minutes early, and just to see maybe if I can run into somebody. Well, last week, they were working on an elevator that had been broken for 2 years, and they had the doors open, and you know, there are men down in the elevator shaft fixing it, putting it together. And so the first thing I do, I start saying, now Lord, how am I going to work this into a conversation? That's the first thing I do. And that's the first prayer. A lot of times you start in the morning when you leave. Like Paul said, Lord, give me the words that I need to say to anybody that I happen to run into today. So I did that when I left the house this morning, but now I'm with 3 people, 2 down in the shaft, and their supervisor sitting over here. And so I could see them working. They're doing computer. And I said, boy, you guys really got your stuff together. I said, how long does it take you to learn how to do this job? And one fellow said, it took me 4 years. And I said, well, that is a major job. You've got to be very smart to do that. So if it's not phony, but if you can find something to say good about the person before you start, you've got a way in. That's what Jesus did with the woman at the well. Give me a drink of water. That was kind of an open door. So anyway, they explained to how much they had to study to learn how to work on an elevator. And I said, obviously, that is a very, very important job. And so then I turned to the supervisor. He was sitting closer than Steve to me. I said, you wouldn't mind if I ask you a question. What is your favorite Bible story? I found that sometimes it's more difficult to ask one person in front of a group of people that question than it is one-on-one. Now these guys were standing there, and one of them was, he had tattoos all over him, and he was about 200 pounds overweight. Get down in that elevator shaft. And the other one there, he's covered in tattoos. Now, automatically, you come to the attitude, they're not interested. It's just somehow or another automatic. As many times as I've done this, you automatically say, they're not going to like this. But more than ever, they do. So I asked the supervisor. He's just sitting there watching them. And I said, what's your favorite Bible story? Well, he said, Joseph. Joseph is my favorite Bible story. Well, then, unbeknown to me, he started telling the whole story of Joseph. He knew the whole thing. And I said, well, what do you like about it? And he said, people turn on you. Sometimes even your own family will turn on you. And that's what I like about it, how your family can turn on you and sell them into slavery. And then he had to forgive them. And that's really hard to learn to forgive your own family when they hurt you. And I said, wow, you really got that story down. You know what it is. Then he did something that not all the time happens, but you got to be prepared for it. he said, what is your favorite Bible story? Now that caught me off guard. I wasn't prepared for that. I should have been, but I wasn't prepared for it. Because my favorite Bible story, because I try to be as honest as I know how to be, is one of the most obscure stories in the whole Bible. And I shouldn't have done that because it's too hard to explain. And he said, what is it? And I said, well, it's not a very common story. It's Mephibosheth in the Old Testament. He said, Mephibosheth who? But me trying to be honest, exactly what it was. How David showed love to somebody that was his enemy. Well, you know, they didn't go over too well as I would have liked. So I learned another lesson. I'm not necessarily going to tell him my favorite. If somebody ever asked me again, that's what I would say. If somebody pressed me on my favorite one, that would be my favorite one. But it's not the best one to tell in a circumstance like that. The best one would have been Cain and Abel. Number one, everybody knows the story. Everybody knows Adam and Eve. So you got to have in your mind the favorite story that is also, now wouldn't be telling a fib, or it is my favorite story to tell, but it's not my favorite story. But it's the best story for evangelism. Cain and Abel is the best story for evangelism. And you know that story. You can tell it. It doesn't matter how well you tell it, as long as you can get some of the basic things. So that was my experience this last week. Now, those of you that were at lunch yesterday, or Sunday, what did we learn from that time when I asked the server, what's his favorite Bible story? What did he say? You remember what he said?
The girl? You talking about the girl when we left?
No, I don't remember her. Oh no, she didn't know anything. She was Bible ignorant. I mean she didn't.
I didn't hear what the guy said.
The guy said, Jesus walking on the water.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Okay. Now that's an unusual story. But then he went on and he said something else. Before he said that, he said, I've got so many I don't know what to say. He said, I've got several. And so then I pushed him a little bit. You can push a little bit. And when I found a push is when a person says something like that, I said, well, I don't have a favorite. And sometimes they'll say, I don't have a favorite. And I'll say, well, just what? Name one. So he said, Jesus, the walking on the water. That's a strange one. But then as he was walking away, he just kept talking. He just kept talking about stories.
He seemed to know a lot about the Bible.
Know a lot about the Bible. You could be surprised in all kinds of ways, like the elevator supervisor knowing the entire story. Knew everything. Now, it was I guess I should have been late getting into rehab, but I said, okay. But they were underneath that elevator, and I said, I don't want to sit there where it fell on them, or, get out. But, any rate, did anybody have an experience this week? Now, my next question is, because I've asked this, and I know Don asked these people out here, and I think his story was the woman at the well, wasn't it? You asked somebody out there what their story was. It's several months ago, a long time ago. But I
asked a guy.
Oh, there was a guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot what it was. But what I wanted to show is how easy it is. How easy it is. It's not hard. And the hardest places are in front. I'm trying to think, what am I not doing that it comes across as being hard to ask people what their favorite Bible story is? What am I not doing right that I haven't caught on, that it hasn't caught on? The only other thing I can think of is that y'all stay in the house all week long and never see anybody.
The only people I see is here.
Yeah, me too.
Is what?
And the only people I see is the people here at church.
You ever go to the grocery store?
Yeah, well, yeah, I used to go, but I'm in and out real quick. Usually I don't fiddle.
Well, sometimes we gotta slow down. We've gotta meet people, and the Lord will help you meet people, and not be in a hurry, because there's just a natural tendency to be in a hurry. I gotta get somewhere. I gotta do something. I gotta go somewhere. So it's important not to be in a hurry, to slow down.
You know, I did, that one time I told you about the man that works there, Ken is his name, he's a big black guy that we talk, and he calls me preacher because every time we get in the conversation about the Bible when I go in there, so that's the one that I do talk to quite often.
Good. Well, one of the themes this week that I've got, and it goes through all 4 chapters, and that is peace. And the peace of God that passes all understanding will keep your heart and mind through Christ Jesus. Now, in every chapter, 14 through the end, has talked about peace. Talks about peace. So I'm just going to hit a couple of them. Now, peace and stress are opposite of each other. If you got peace, you don't have the stress that you need. And peace and health go hand in hand. And joy go hand in hand. Peace and joy go all through these chapters, over and over. My joy, my peace. Now, the number one is in John 14, in my thinking. John 14, verse 1. And you've all heard many sermons on this, and you've heard a lot of funeral sermons on this. Let not your heart be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. Now, so the biggest question for me as I'm studying this passage is that little word let. The little word let. Can we stop our hearts from being troubled? Can we stop it? You remember that old Bob Newhart skit? You remember that story? Bob Newhart was a psychiatrist, and this lady come in and he said, look, he said, I've got, it's going to be $5. You got to pay right now, $5. And he said, what's your problem? He said, I got one word. All my counseling is just one word. And he said, what's your problem? The lady said, I'm afraid I'm going to be buried alive. And he said, okay, stop it. What's your next problem? Well, aren't you going to help me? I just did. Stop it. He said, aren't you going to help me learn how to not be afraid of being buried alive? I just did. Stop it. And she kept going on and on. He said, your 5 minutes is up, lady. You're through. He said, well, you haven't told me. He said, look, are you crazy, lady? Who wants to go around being afraid of being buried alive in a basket, in a casket? So just stop it. Just stop it. And that's what I think of every time I think of that first verse. Let not your heart be troubled. Jesus just basically told him, stop it. Stop letting your heart be troubled. Just don't do it anymore. If you do, your problem is you don't believe in me. So that's your problem, is you don't believe me. If you believe me, you wouldn't have a troubled heart. If you believe in God, you need to believe me. I told you I'm coming back. I told you nothing's going to happen to you. So just stop letting your heart be troubled. Now, when I read that and realized what Jesus was saying, he's saying the same thing as Bob Newhart. Just stop it. Don't do it anymore. And then later on, he said, you heard me tell you that your hearts are worried. This whole chapter here deals with this same topic. You told me that I told you that I'm leaving. If you loved me, you would rejoice because I'm leaving. Now that's another part at a funeral service that we don't usually talk about too much. But if you love me, you would rejoice that I'm going to the Father. And then the other part that he said down there, I promise you another helper is coming. I'm not going to leave you orphans. So it all boils down to, in all four of these chapters, it all boils down to one real simple thing. Peace is the opposite of believing in Jesus. If you believe in me, you would not have these worries. I've told you what I'm going to do. Now that might sound harsh, and where I am, there you're going to be also. Now, it's whenever I finally came to the conclusion that it's my responsibility to not let my heart be troubled. I'm responsible for that. I'm responsible for not having a troubled heart. I will not leave you orphans. And then he goes on and he said, my peace I leave with you in verse 27. My peace I give you, not as the world gives. The world does not give you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Don't be afraid and don't be troubled, because I'm giving you my peace. Jump into another person's scripture real quickly. There is no fear in love. No fear in love. What are we afraid of? What are we afraid of? Jesus said if you had love, you wouldn't be afraid. You wouldn't be afraid. Perfect love casts out fear. Not any fear in perfect love. See, when we put things in black and white and point blank and really figure out why we don't have peace, it's as simple as just believing what Jesus says all the way through these four chapters. Now, I hope you don't think I'm being, hard or any kind of a way. But I had to come to this same conclusion myself. When I studied the word let, don't let your heart. So we have control over things. If we somehow or another think we don't have any control over things, well, we've got a whole lot more control than we think. And that control revolves around, does Jesus really mean what he said he did? So it comes back, you believe in me, believe in my Father. Well, we'll continue this again because it's in every chapter. It gets easier. But let's stop to pray for Steve now.